International students can no longer get visas for their dependents unless they are on a postgraduate research program or a government-sponsored course. This was made clear by the British Home Secretary James Cleverly, calling it an unreasonable practice of overseas students bringing their families to the UK. He further stated that it would end as restrictions on visa routes came into force on Monday. The ban, which affects all but those enrolling in postgraduate research courses and ones with government-funded scholarships, will cut migrations by tens of thousands.
We will stop overseas care workers from bringing family dependents, and we will require care firms in England to be regulated by the Care Quality Commission in order for them to sponsor visas. Second, we will stop immigration undercutting the salary of British workers.
The measures were announced in May by ousted predecessor Suella Braverman shortly before official figures showed that migration running at 672,000, or rather showed net migration was running about that. The Prime Minister Rishi Sunak tweeted, from today, the majority of foreign university students cannot bring family members to the UK. Now, joining us to look at the implications of this and more is lawyer, migration counselor Eniton Oteji-Bironke. Good morning and welcome to Breakfast Central.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here.
Very good to have you here.
How much of a big blow is this, to the Nigerian who wants to go abroad?
Oh, well, most definitely, like you and I can expect, it's a huge blow. It's a big disappointment for a lot of Nigerians, and even more so for the ideas that they had planned around, or we're going, I'm going to take my family members, or I'm going to be able to find a way out of Nigeria as an escape route. So this definitely is coming as not just a big blow, but it's shattering. It's like you have your dreams and your aspirations, and they've all been destroyed by that announcement. But then, there was some time notice. This has been on since last year. Yeah. The information has been said, so at least I give you some heads up, 6 months notice minimum to be able to know that this is going to take place.
Yeah. Now, let's also look at what this might mean. How would you say that this visa policy would affect immigration patterns of Nigerians?
Well, firstly, from feelers and from everything going on and from conversations, Nigerians are still not going to stop trying to migrate to the UK. Oh, definitely not. They're not going to stop. The only thing that it will do is that it would definitely open up vistas into other European countries that have more friendly policies for migration. Unfortunately, and maybe unfortunately for the European countries and unfortunately for Nigerians, is that migration policies and decisions impact elections in European countries. So you look at sovereign states trying to protect their citizens and looking at what is good for social welfare, as opposed to the issue of foreign income that is coming in from foreign students. But that balancing act is what it is. But to answer the question, again, it would definitely open up more countries in the European place, and also hopefully be able to increase intra-African migration, especially with education policies, and also looking at even internal development of our own educational system.
I mean, when you talk about intra-African migration, the expectation is that the migration is because of education. It's not. Let's first of all, state that migration to the UK and any of these countries that we're, talking about, that's not just because there's a large number of people trying to get degrees from these places.
Definitely.
So, but let me also ask something. I saw, of course, on statistics yesterday that international students, 2021-2022 academic year, contributed about £41 billion to the UK economy. Anyway, let's leave it at that. Do you think that this might be, something that will change after a couple of years? When the UK government once again realizes that, okay, we're losing some money, we're not having these people, come in their thousands to pay school fees here. So maybe we should, relax these policies again and let them bring their family members.
Well, I am not exactly sure that's going to happen because already universities in the UK are already complaining about a decline in the numbers of people who want to come in, as well as the funds that they're going to receive. What I suspect would happen is that there will be a different direction again. But I do not see the UK saying, oh, you can come with your dependents. There'll probably be a different type of angle to the visa plans, because what was happening was that with dependents, why dependents were coming in was because there was the option to be able to work. So you could turn your visa into a work permit at some point in your stay there. But what is happening is that when you have a situation where the number of people who are coming on student visas are lower than the number of dependents who are coming on their dependent visas, there's a problem. And the UK government is definitely not, unless there's an increase in their economic situation or their social security system, which they're also grappling with. And then also the angle of unemployment of British citizens and issues around minimum wage and the wages are being paid, because when you have migrants who come in, they can get paid less for the same job, and they're also very qualified.
Yeah.
So you find that those situations around in another 3 years is not going to change.
So you've talked about how this might be an opportunity to boost intra-African migration, which is something I'm hoping we can have a conversation about before the end of this interview. But let's talk about what other alternatives, education alternatives might abound, or what other countries might start to look very attractive. I mean, for the longest time, Canada looked very attractive, such that they even made a song out of it. So,
oh yes, that song.
yeah. So what other countries, how do you foresee, the alternatives that students will take when it comes to education, and then countries that might start to look more attractive to Nigerians?
Well, first, there are a lot of other countries, even European countries, but the major challenge has been the language barrier. And the fact that when you look at language, you also look at distance, you also look at where you have people that you are familiar with. Of course, Nigerians are everywhere in the world. But then to take that, we have countries like Germany. We know that Germany has always had very good educational policies in terms of how they have the family reunification programs. You have a lot of options, even for you to come in, study, bring your dependents in. However, you must definitely know you must learn the German language. You have Australia. We know the distance of Australia as well. You know how Nigerians think to ourselves, am I going to the end of the world?
And they are thinking about dealing with all the reptiles.
Right.
On social media.
But they also have their own, but they're thinking language again. New Zealand is another option again. You have as well, apart from those countries, that's Africa, that's Mauritius. That's an African country. Those are options to look at. There's Holland. There are places around, apart from Canada. So what is happening is that other than Canada and the US, which had always been, US had always been the first choice, and then you had Canada. Now you are looking at those other European countries. But then, as has been said, Nigerians are resilient, and language barrier will not stop them.
Yeah, but I think it's also, the possibility of, obtaining citizenship. That's one of the motivating factors also. Besides the language factor, how easy is it to get a German citizenship if you go there as a student? How easy is it, for you to get a citizenship in any of these countries? Canada, of course, people say it will take you 3 years, 4 years to get a citizen. So let's first of all talk about what you see as the main motivation for Nigerians leaving Nigeria.
Okay.
It's not school, is it?
No, definitely it's not school. The main motivation for Nigerians leaving, the push factor, is economic. We're looking at poverty, which of course people question that answer of poverty because they say the funds and the cost of actually going is high. But the infrastructure that we have in the system, the way society is structured in terms of quality of life, better quality of life, in terms of access to infrastructure, access to good jobs. Well, you may have good jobs, or how good are they? How viable are they? So the push factor for migration, which we know is not education, is economic. Is also health. You're looking at simple facilities. You're looking at electricity. How well is the quality of life here? That is the first reason. Those are the major reasons why people look. So when we do those questions, we talk to people, we ask them questions. You always find that the answer across board has been better quality of life. I mean, from October to December, I had the, privilege or the responsibility of talking to over 156 Nigerians, calling them, and everybody's answer was, why do you want to leave Nigeria? I want a better quality of life. From the people, from school cert holder to degree holders. Yeah. The same answer across board.
And it's not like we can blame them. I mean, today in the news, we just took reports of how fuel is, NNPCL and marketers, the arguments and conversation about the fuel getting to 1,200 naira to the litre. That's not what we bargained for. How are people supposed to cope with that?
Unfortunately.
I mean, I want us to quickly touch on the intra-Africa migration options and what that would look like and what that would mean. Because even now, we find that there are some African countries that you have to go to Europe. So you leave Nigeria, go to a European country before going to the African country. Intra-African tourism isn't always the easiest. So if we're talking about intra-African migration, what would that look like? And also, just if you can quickly touch on the reports we heard this morning in the papers, the federal government had banned accreditation of certificates from Togo and Benin universities. So what would the picture of intra-African migration look like? And quickly touch on the other one as well.
So what this is doing is it's going to be a very compulsory, or rather, it's going to push us to go back to the drawing board as Africa. Because when foreigners, when other continents are telling you, we don't want you to come in a certain way, or we want only a part of your family, we're a very family-oriented society. So if you're saying come as an individual, don't come with your family, we're going, that means that what is happening is that some other societies are going to the core of our values. So what we should do as a thinking continent, which we are supposed to be, is to go back to joint and say, we have the African Union, we have ECOWAS, we have international bodies within Africa. How do we make travel easier? How do we look at, there was already suggestions last year as about removing visas. Kenya removed visa already.
Exactly.
Let's even the fact that within the ECOWAS corridor, how should it be easy to move? So this move by the government to remove accreditation from some countries, from universities from some countries, is actually not, in my opinion, a very good move, considering the fact that the Western world is already saying don't come. Those are options that Nigerians were exploring. And we're even looking at going to. Then in terms of travel, you see, one of the challenges that happened was last year. Interestingly, there was a lot of information that went around about the undersizing of Africa, the real size of what the continent of Africa is, and how wide it is, as opposed to what the map that we have been using is, which has been the nautical map. So when you look at it, really, you look at it realistically, that going from one end of Africa to the other end of Africa may not be as short or as fast as we've always thought. So is it easier to go through Europe? No. But then what have we done about developing our own transportation system? So this is actually a call to African leaders to say, when we're going for those meetings, those migration meetings, what are we doing? Because there's a global migration compact. When you find that so far so good, the conversations around migration and anything at all to do with travel has always been pushed by the West and not from Africa. It's only in recent times, last year, December, that ECOWAS started talking about, let's look at migration policies in Africa. What are we going to do? How are we going to be able to make it easy? Then what about that? What is the standard of education that is even happening within Africa? And then if I even get educated in Africa, does it increase my economic opportunities anywhere else in the world? But you're finding that more and more countries outside of Nigeria are having exchange programs, and with the world being connected by technology, you can have lecturers who are resident in other parts of the world who are able to take the classes even while you are here in Africa doing it. So you find that this is creating opportunities for those that are discerning, for those that are going to leverage on technology, and for those that are going to be able to say, no, let's connect the world even from where we are. Even right now, we're having a lot of remote opportunities. It's just that when you look at exchange rate issues, people say, no, I'll still rather go there. But I think sometimes, even the going there sometimes might be based on fear factors. And sometimes, we find recently, I have seen a lot of people who are relocating to Nigeria, non-Nigerians and Nigerians, and they're living well.
Oh, I know of Nigerians who have gone there, gotten their degrees, gotten their passports. I want to come back to Nigeria.
Want to come back.
Yeah, because, like I said, the main motivation, aside, of course, living, in a better quality of life, is also citizenship. Mm-hmm. So if you go there and you spend 3-4 years and you get citizenship, you want to come back home, you can come back because now you're a Canadian citizen or you're a British citizen, depends on how long you spent. And that for me, is, from what I've heard, is the main motivation. Yes, people would go to other places that may not give you citizenship, but when they're going to Canada, they're going there because they want to be citizens, and of course, be assured of that protection that citizenship gives. And I don't know that African leaders would start to think inwards, because they're not migrating for citizenship. Those African leaders don't have those issues that the average Nigerian has. If Rishi Sunak wakes up tomorrow and says, no more treatment of African leaders in our hospitals,
maybe
we will probably sit up. If they say African leaders, your children can no longer school in our countries, and that's what happens immediately, then we probably would sit up. But as long as those things don't affect them directly, I don't think that any Nigerian leader is going to be waking up to say, how can I make sure the country is working well enough to reduce the number of people that want to japa? I don't know that that's the first thing in their minds at any time, because they're not being affected by it. Share with us a little bit more about the dangers, really, that people have also, if you know any of those stories. Japa syndrome has happened for the last couple of years. Have there been people who have also had it bad and had terrible experiences?
Well, true, that question is a very interesting one, because while you were talking, I was thinking to myself and saying, this move, this push, this jackpot that we're doing, and we're saying it's economic reasons, are we actually just going because it's, sometimes you go with the head mentality.
Yeah.
Everybody's doing something and they tell you that it's, so let's all go. When we look at it statistically and properly, are they really better off? Are we really better off leaving and jackpotting? Now, back to the question that you just asked now. There are a lot of horror stories, because you find that you go with a student visa. You are going on an expectation that at the end of your program, you're going to be able to get some certain jobs or do something. Yeah. Now, with the influx, it's the same thing. When there's such a high demand, the number of people, when the supply is more than the demand, you still go back to the same unemployment issues. As of the last 5 years, even the European countries have had they've had a huge unemployment crisis, because you are finding that there are more people than jobs that exist. And so a lot of people that have gone to jackpot are finding that they're going to either get jobs that are low-level jobs, lower than their qualification to survive. Then they also, in getting there, spoken to a lot of people who find that the cost of living is not, you pay for everything. You're literally going to even pay for the air you're breathing. You're paying for your bill, you're paying every single bill, electricity, water, housing.
And the tax system.
The taxes. So you're literally, so you're schooling. And one of the reasons why they were able to bring in dependents then was, okay, you come in, so you're working, and then we're able to augment the bills for where we're here. Yep. So that already shows you that in that system, it's not exactly as easy as people have made it seem. Now, you're also discovering that in order to now ameliorate the effects of that horror story or the challenges, a number of Nigerians are turning to business. So you're asking, okay, you know what, if you're living in Nigeria, you're going abroad, you're not going to have to do business. And you're not going to be able to register your business because you're not registering as a legal entity. You're still doing it in the same hustling spirit and the same hustle vibe. That already creates a question. So I think that if you ask me, while this may seem like bad news for Nigerians, it may actually be something that's going to turn the tide around for how we're reasoning and what we're doing. And I'm looking forward to a situation where, like, I heard a story, Kalendi, there was a particular Nigerians who have actually taken the bold step of creating opportunities through. So I'm thinking to myself now that as these things have happened and the horror stories are increasing, we still had about 10,000 Nigerians who there's a plan to deport because they're there and they don't have, so they're already out of the system, because either they came in through student visas, but they're not, their visas have expired, there's nothing else happening. That was already in the news as of December. So they're there so now they become irregular. They're finding that people go there and they find that jobs that they went there for, there was a story that broke last month, December, I was going to say last year, well, it was last year, about people who said they paid £10,000. They were going to get there and there were no care jobs. The jobs they thought they were going to be able to do didn't exist, or were not at the level they thought. Those stories are coming out more and more every day. And so, while this may seem like a blow to Nigerians, it may also be a saving point, because the funds and the finances invested in relocating or migrating to the UK have been so high. A lot of people are indebted to date. I know people who, it's really, it's a very, very terrible crisis.
People sell a number of their properties.
Yes.
They sell everything.
They sell everything, they borrow money, they collect. So if you sell your property, I think that's bad enough, but it's just your own crisis. But when they come to you as family members or to us and they get money and they borrow and there's no way they're going to pay it back.
I mean, so to be honest, I think what we're pointing out with this part of the conversation is, the level of desperation that exists with people wanting to leave.
Exactly.
And I don't think that the Nigerian government should see a statement from Rishi Sunak like that and not be embarrassed, because to a large extent, I haven't looked at the numbers, but I'm sure that there's a large percentage of these people that they're talking about that are Nigerians.
Yes. Yeah, but
so I mean, it should be embarrassing to the Nigerian government at least to see that indirectly Rishi Sunak is telling you that your citizens come in here with thousands more dependents than those who are coming to school and those who are coming for care jobs. Nigerians are leaving their bank jobs and corporate jobs that they have here to go and do care jobs in the UK. Isn't that embarrassing?
It is embarrassing. To be honest, it is embarrassing. But as much as I understand that Nigerians feel very slighted and very upset about this. The truth is that Nigeria is not the only country affected by this, and we're the third largest. So while we have India, we have Pakistan, who are also affected by this policy and any other, so any form of immigrants that come in. So while I feel that we get very hoity, we should be embarrassed, I think we should go beyond being embarrassed. I think we should actually get to a point where we take action. And naturally, you'll realize that while we put the blame on government, and the government has a lot of work to do, I still believe strongly that there should be private-public participation in issues that affect. These are citizens going. So when we look at it very well, it is still the citizens that are going. So what are happening to corporations? What are the CSR initiatives that big corporations can do? What kind of ideology can we bring to the table in terms of how we're collaborating and being able to create better ecosystems here?
All right. So I also, I mean, you've talked about people looking inward and looking for opportunities, but I also want to look at an industry that this may affect, and that's the aviation space, hospitality. So how do you think, or do you think that this would in some measure affect the aviation economy in Nigeria, for example? And do you think that this new policy by the United Kingdom will grossly affect UK's economy?
Well, it would affect the UK economy. I don't know if it's going to be a matter of how gross it's going to be. Why do I say so? Because one, already the issue of dependence and the number of people coming in was creating a serious burden on the economic system in the UK. It was creating a burden on the social system. And so what will happen is that we take away that burden, our economy, inflow into our economy may reduce, but we're not leaking. And we're not leaking out resources to people who are not our citizens. At the end of the day, this policy was supposed to be a protection of their citizens or their economy. Now, is it really that? Or are there other bilateral or underlying foreign policy issues involved in that? Because there's an election coming up in 2025 in the UK, and it's predicted that the Labour Party would win better because of their conservative views towards migration, which we also seen even in Germany. We saw the German Vice Chancellor in Nigeria last year. Those are the issues. Migration issues are shaping the elections in Europe. So you find that, and when they look at it that way, what is also happening is that if we're able to bring what at the end of the day is the goal for UK and Europe and any form of migration into those systems is we want skilled labor. We want people that we are able to, we can define, we can say are contributing effectively to our economy. So at this point in time, there might be a reduction in university fees, in some of the economic things that come in, but long term, ideally, it should not affect the economy for them.
And the aviation space?
The aviation space, so definitely, well, it would affect travel to the UK, but it's not going to affect the aviation because there'll be travel to other places. Yeah. Definitely. Because you're fine already, even before this came out, people are already looking at, oh, how do we, there's a lot of inflow, there's a lot of interest in Germany. And because Germany has a lot of open policies for migrants, they have a lot of opportunities. Even in technology, as of December, there was quite a lot going on. There's things around technology, bringing in tech workers. And we know that Africa, look at what we're already doing in Nigeria with technology. So that whole tech space is being looked for in Europe.
Yeah.
So you're going to find the aviation industry will not suffer that drastically. Because as at now, today, I'm sure if you still go and check, Nigerians are already en route to everywhere. Then you find that for hospitality, for some specific industries like hospitality, where Mauritius is, there are countries that have very good hospitality courses and programs, and in Mauritius is one. So you're going to find that people are going to be going to those other places to say, I want to do this, this is what I'm looking at. And because we're having outlier industries, we're having unusual careers coming up now, the UK, the only thing that made the UK attractive recently was because they could come in. A lot of people had stopped going to the UK with that fervor. There were other places that they were going to, and that's going to come back again, immediately.
Again, anybody who is genuinely interested in studying hospitality or any other, field, is not going to go to Mauritius, with the plan of taking his family. I keep saying it. The reason for
Really?
Japa is not because of school. It's
Well,
not
you
because
think so?
I disagree, though. I
think
disagree.
that-
And you know why I disagree? I disagree because I have also had conversations with people, yes, who want foreign passports, but at the basis of a number of their the disagreements or the discomforts that they have with Nigeria, they will tell you they're asking for the basics.
Yes.
I remember how very frustrated I was when I went on holiday that I was seeing that I was being able to access transportation. I didn't have to drive. it was a lot easier in the UK to move around. Yes, you're paying for a number of these things. You're paying tax, but you're seeing what your tax is doing.
Exactly.
So I think for some people, it's just being able to afford the basics. Some people who go to have their children abroad will tell you that the reason they're going to have their children abroad is not because of, some of them are already citizens, so wherever they have their children are automatically citizens, but they will tell you access to quality healthcare is what they're going for. So,
Japa is not because of quality.
Really? So I don't think I'm going to. I think they will go. I think they will go with their dependents, even to Mauritius, because people are looking for. So another reason that people have also taken the dependents, they want the quality of life for their children too. People are not going to go, and no matter what country they go to.
It's the same thing I'm saying. It's because I need that passport so my kids can have a better life.
No.
If I'm going to Mauritius, right? If I decide that I'm going to Mauritius because I have a good, hospitality school there.
Yes, please.
Those people exist. I'm not saying that everybody who's traveling now is simply, because they're trying to move their family abroad. There are people who are going for MBAs. There are people who are going for, masters properly. Those people aren't moving their families abroad. They're going to go and they're going to come back, but they're going to go somewhere else after that. But 98% of the people that we're talking about in this discussion are not going there because they want to learn.
This is an argument, and I'm sure that we can pose that to the audience. Let us know, from your interaction, would you say that the larger population of those who have been leaving the country are leaving because they want to get passport or pali, or because they want to be able to afford good quality of life? Let us know at News Central TV. We want to especially thank our guest lawyer and migration counselor, Eniton Oteju Ibironke. Thank you so much for your time. We really enjoyed having you here.
Thank you. I enjoyed being here as well.